Hey, hey, folks. Are we loud and clear?
Well, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Can hear you as well. Good to see you guys.
Thanks for being here, mate. It is an honor and a privilege to have you, David. So, everyone, this is Revenue Search 3, I believe. And we have David Fields from SN33 ReadyAI. And in my opinion, this is an important one because if you look at the AI sort of funnel, so to speak, you have data curation, data slash cleaning and labeling, pre-training, training, fine-tuning, evaluation, and validation, etc. So David has put himself at the tippy top of that iceberg, and I think it'll be good to sort of dig in. So, without further ado, David, who are you?
Yeah, so quickly just on myself. So I've spent my career sort of in large enterprise and then kind of investing in the startup ecosystem. So I was at Disney. I did M&A and strategy at corporate. Worked on the Pixar deal, and we acquired Pixar. Ended up leaving there to go work for the former CEO of Disney for about a decade, running investments for him, investing in the intersection of consumer and enterprise and tech. Really got excited about AI. I kind of separately studied incentive design in college, got very excited about Bitcoin early on, Ethereum, kind of just post ICO, and have always been excited about Web3 and really saw AI and Web3 coming together in just an exciting way that we thought was really critical, for enterprise. And we can kind of get into, a little bit about what we're building, but I think, decentralization and sort of ownership of data for enterprises is really becoming kind of front and center, a big issue. And this has kind of come up recently with the Scale AI acquisition, which is probably our most direct comp or competitor in the kind of centralized world.
Nice. And so for those who are not familiar with ReadyAI, could you give us in simple layman terms, what the hell do you do? And what does Scale AI do?
Yeah, absolutely. So ReadyAI is building effectively a decentralized scale AI. So we're a platform that's leveraging a decentralized network of participants. We call them miners in Bittensor, that are running AI models to rapidly transform raw data into structured data, structured AI ready data sets, and do this faster, cheaper, and with greater accuracy than what's traditionally sort of done with more human-driven approaches. So Scale leverages a lot of human annotators who are distributed all across the globe. They work with many of the largest AI model labs, everyone from Meta to OpenAI, have been using Scale. But just in the last week, Scale was bought by Meta for about a $30 billion total valuation. They bought half the company. And within minutes, it seemed, Google, OpenAI, and Microsoft sort of all ended their relationships with Scale. And I think it speaks to how important data is, kind of in the AI model process. Obviously, Scale was working with a lot of the largest companies. Many of these medium and larger, but smaller than the Mag 7 size companies, are all needing to kind of move into the AI space aggressively. And the cost of human annotation is still quite prohibitively expensive for a lot of AI use cases. So with miners now competing, we're able to drop that cost significantly and increase the accuracy.
David, what are the miners annotating?
Yeah, so with the subnet, what we've really focused on initially is text data. So we kind of view it as like a spectrum where we want to, over time, generalize this to every problem in kind of text and ultimately kind of expanding to image and video sort of over time, but that's a little further out. But we started with conversational data sets, so large scale podcasting data sets. We then expanded to social media data, which is a really important sort of use case. We enable anyone to run Hugging Face data sets directly through our kind of our interface on our site, and then we're working with enterprises on specific use cases that they have for categorizing and annotating their data, for their own model purposes, or it very much can also be for RAG systems and kind of database optimization for AI.
So you're taking like transcripts of podcasts and video, and you're taking that transcript, and then you're running that through a system to annotate it.
Exactly. So think about, like, maybe at the simplest example, you have, a Joe Rogan podcast, that's a couple hours long, that gets cut up into pieces where the validator, which is sort of the group that is, evaluating those annotations, is able to establish sort of a ground truth for the conversation. They're able to understand what's going on in, let's call it, the whole Joe Rogan podcast, or the first hour of it. And then it splits up into windows, or smaller pieces of that conversation, sends that out to, 6 miners get kind of each of these pieces, and they're then scored on how they categorize what's going on within the conversation. And so that's very relevant to sort of the conversational kind of data set needs. We actually published on Hugging Face, and now have, I think, somewhere like 10,000 downloads now of the conversational data set that we open sourced, from kind of the podcasting data that we were running through it. Now we're really doing a lot of social media data, which has some different kind of value in terms of categorizing it, where social media data, the real-time nature of it is really critical. So we've started to showcase how that can be utilized in AI agents. So as you guys know, we launched Tau Agent a week ago. We had also launched an agent with Seed Phrase, who's a large influencer and one of the biggest collectors of digital art, sort of focused on these like heavy informational bots that really require a lot of data processing sort of in real time. And so categorizing that data, knowing whether it's relevant to pull into your database, your vector database, is really critical, because garbage in, garbage out is a massive problem in kind of the AI agent space. And so that's another way to think about one of the, the advantages of structured data, is like bringing more context to how you're going to use that information in your AI systems.
So how sort of go for it, Mark. So I stepped on you.
I want more clarity. Like so the podcast, chunk it up, send it out, and then we categorize it. Are we categorizing it into like, this is an argument, this is two people who are violently agreeing, or are we categorizing it into this is a sport category and this is an art category? Which way are we categorizing it?
More into the second. But I mean, you can also get, right, like argumentative could be one of the better descriptions of what's happening in that podcast. But by and large, it would be that Joe Rogan and his guest are talking about, the war in Ukraine, and, the use of B-2 bombers, and, like kind of focusing on different aspects of that conversation. And then similarly, with the social media data, you're getting similar understanding of, obviously there are many Twitter accounts that we're processing to inform the 2 different agents that we've launched. But there are many times that, a really, important person on, Twitter for the NFT world might be talking about, the World Series, or, the NBA finals, and like stuff that's not going to be relevant, and incorporating that into your data set is going to be problematic. So that's like the most obvious sort of example. But obviously getting into understanding, whether that's talking about, a specific NFT collection, or whether that's talking about, sort of market, fluctuations, or, pricing, is all really valuable insights to help contextualize how you're querying these models. So it might be helpful too to just like talk a little bit about RAG systems. So I know people are, probably to some degree familiar with, what you laid out, Siam, at the beginning of, kind of pre-training, training. So the structured data that we're doing is very helpful in terms of organizing really large data sets for more specific model development. So we partnered up with Common Crawl. We're starting to process large scale website data as well now, sort of thinking about the expansion of like the spectrum of data that we want to enable through through the subnet. Obviously the web is massive. Having this categorization and optimization of that data, for, okay, I want to build a financial model versus I want to use the entire Common Crawl data set to pre-train, a large scale AI model. Those are, kind of different use cases on that side. And then for most enterprises, they're really looking to take their knowledge base, right? That could be, decades of information that they have sort of in their records, and they want to optimize that for RAG systems or retrieval of that information, where they can go in, access that information in a database, and then provide to the larger model, the foundation model, much more context that's specific to their business. So then the foundation model has all of the insight around their business specific data to inform how they respond to that query. And structured data is like the linchpin of making those vector databases really work and that retrieval work well.
Okay, so we have 3 minutes left. So I have to get on to the money questions. So in the paying market, which is the hungriest segment that you can sell into? So I take it you're going to be a business to enterprise model. So
Yes.
who is going to be paying you the most, and for what data annotation?
Yeah, so just to set the stage, I mean, data labeling is already a $5 billion a year industry. It's growing to 17 billion over the next 5 years. So it's a massively kind of exploding in terms of enterprise demand for AI. Scale obviously validated some of the need there. One of the big kind of strategic positionings that like we saw and why we really built on Bittensor was leveraging the intelligence of miners using models versus human annotators was able to get us to much higher accuracy and kind of lower costs. So we brought on, we're very focused on sort of the revenue question here at ReadyAI. We hired a VP of sales who came out of Microsoft and Deloitte a few months back. We've started to launch some end-to-end products to service customers. So we launched a product called Brand Radar that's leveraging our structured data pipeline. So that's pulling all of these social media data insights from that brand and giving them real-time information and updates about their business. We've onboarded a number of initial customers, paying customers to that already. And that's also serving as a really nice funnel to these larger structured data deals. So we have about a half dozen POCs right now for structured data with large enterprises that we're working through. Having come from Disney, my co-founder came out, sold his business to Google, worked there for 5-6 years. We're working on really proving out kind of the accuracy and that cost level, ensuring that they can get that same level of success out of the subnet as they're seeing from their kind of alternatives. But so far that's been very, very encouraging.
So just so I understand that, your radar service is a bit like back in the day setting up some Google alerts on your brand name, but instead of just knowing when you popped up on Google for some reason, you keep me informed of if anyone's talking about me, if I crop up somewhere, that because that gets annotated, that gets fed back through to me. That's what I'm paying for.
Exactly. And we're processing data via the subnet, but we're also delivering a full end-to-end product on top of that. And so I think you're going to start seeing more of that, with subnets, where I'm a big believer that we have to prove out, the value of the digital commodity, with products ourselves. That's why you're seeing us launching things like, Tau Agent, as well as Brand Radar that kind of sit on top of this.
Yeah, it's not
it's not my fault this time.
So
I like to call for 21 minutes. I think 21.
The answers here. No. So on the radar front, give me an idea of what sort of businesses are paying for that radar service and how much they value it.
Yeah. So with Brand Radar, that's why I sort of see that as like an onboarding to these larger conversations. That's going to be more of a kind of SaaS model where, they're paying, $70 to $100 a month, for that service on a, kind of on a monthly basis, getting real-time updates, and reports. We're working with a number of e-commerce, companies, they want to have insights into a product launch or, any feedback that's going wrong across, the entire web, where, it could be from Reddit to review sites to, to Facebook, right? That they're getting these insights across.
And
how soon are you to getting revenue?
Well, we're starting to generate revenue on that product today. And I think our view, kind of with where we are with a number of the larger scale kind of annotation projects, we see ourselves getting to meaningful revenue in the second half of this year.
And you said it's a 5 billion market at the minute, heading to 17 billion. How fragmented is it? How much of that are you hoping to scoop up?
Well, I mean, the scale AI stuff is pretty interesting because I think it's just fragmented the market further. I mean, they were the leader, but I think most companies are now, concerned about, leveraging them with, the one of the big, Mag 7, now controlling that group. So we're seeing, that kind of opening the floodgates, quite a bit. And then, I know in terms of just like maybe getting a little more specific too with how all of this value sort of accrues to alpha holders. So, we have really kind of three ways that we're focused on delivering value to the alpha stakers. So we'll be buying back alpha with revenue from those enterprise deals. We also really see, and I think this is really important to sort of the longer term vision of Bittensor, enterprises will start holding alpha themselves to access the bandwidth of our network directly. Because then instead of having to trust us as the validator to run their data through the intelligence of the network, they can run their own validator, which we provide all of the code for. And, it's quite easy for them to do. But then they have full control over their data, which I think is going to be really critical. And then we're starting to, launch these information-rich products like Tau Agent, which we're going to be launching a terminal for. So you'll have to hold alpha to access it initially, and then we'll have some fiat to alpha kind of conversion stuff for people, who are paying for the service but maybe not holding alpha.
So that last thing you said was quite interesting. That if they just gobbled up a whole bunch of your own alpha, just so they could, let's say, validate themselves. That's great for SN33's alpha, but does that mean that your core company misses out on a shit ton of revenue if they were to circumnavigate that way?
I mean, look, I think that in my view is sort of part of what we want to do with Bittensor as a whole, right? Like we're building here, we're showcasing the product. I think you're gonna, from my experience at Disney and like these large companies, like they're probably not going to be the ones that start to hold alpha, and kind of do that. Some number of companies will. Others will say, look, we're okay with trusting a group like ReadyAI to be sort of that trusted intermediary. And then others will say, okay, we want to, control our own destiny. And I've talked about this, with some others. I think it's really interesting because I kind of came into crypto like many, thinking that everyone cares about things like privacy. And, then you just see, people share, information, endlessly with, with all of these, giant companies. But that's really on the consumer side. We talk to enterprises every single day, and they care deeply about their data. Most of them, almost all of them, are not even enabling their company employees to use OpenAI, right? They don't trust their data to go out to OpenAI. They don't know what they're going to do with that information. So data is a much more critical piece when you're an enterprise, and that could be a core way that your business could be disrupted. So I think this is going to become, and scale, just sort of crystallize this with everyone kind of leaving the second that they sold to Meta. This is going to be a very important thing, and decentralization, we're betting is an important part of the answer there.
I can see Siam's getting answered.
I've got one last question. How many questions do you have, Mark?
One. Hopefully it's the same question.
No, you first.
Well, if the phone rang now, who's the one person or who's the one type of person that could really help you out here?
Yeah, I mean, the most valuable partners right now are ones that are already doing annotation, kind of at scale, and looking to us to supercharge those efforts, be able to enable them to do that at larger scale because we can lower their costs. So we're really focused on going after some of those largest enterprises that are deep in the annotation game already.
Yeah.
Nice. And my last final question, which is a bit disjointed. So, like in the internet boom, you saw a lot of the big companies gobbling up smaller companies for the capabilities and effectively shelving those capabilities just for their own use. So now, Meta's got scale. Do you know if they're going to be sort of withholding some of the premium labeling for themselves and only giving sort of limited access to everyone else? If so, can you fulfill that gap?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously an area we're really focused on right now. This is all a week old, but yeah, I think that the market sentiment seems to be we can't really trust scale with Meta controlling the business and having sort of our data and a lot of the ways that we our training models kind of comes out in that data labeling process. They're scrambling for alternatives.
Well,
Nice.
I think that's brought us neatly in on time. So thanks,
Perfectly
Dave,
on
for all
time.
of your concise answers. We really appreciate your brevity.
Awesome.
I think that's that, wasn't it? We're all done here.
I love that. Yeah, this is honestly, I genuinely enjoyed this, and yeah, so thank you, David. And our next revenue search is Monday. So we've got Sam from Templar on Monday at 1500 UK time. So yeah, Sam's a character. Can't wait for that. And he's doing one hell of a.
Sam's great. That'll be a great one.
Fantastic, wonderful stuff.
We'll see if he can keep it. We'll see if he can keep it under 27 minutes.
Nah, no chance.
Thanks, guys. This was fun. Appreciate
David,
it.
thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Bye bye.
Cheerio.